Hello and welcome to FPL Have a Beer, where I invite you to have a beer with me and talk FPL. Uh, Please like and subscribe the video and subscribe to the channel. We're around 140 viewers at the time of recording this, and it would be absolutely amazing to hit 200 viewers before 2025. Maybe 300. That might be a little bit. Maybe. Anyway, please subscribe to support the channel. It means the world to me. So welcome to another interview in the FPL Meet the Manager, Meet the Content Creator interview series, where I asked one of our lovely FPL managers, content creators to come on the channel to chat about their experiences of content creation, their thoughts on FPL mental health, which is a bit of a theme of the channel, and we also have a bit of a general chat about FPL towards the end. So this is the 9th interview in this series. I can't believe it's 9 already. And Ray is kindly agreed to join me. Ray is a regular contributor to channels like Elite FPL and FPL Juice, as well as having his own YouTube channel. Ray, I'm delighted to have you here, mate. As you know, I'm a massive fan of Elite FPL and what those guys do. A quick shout out to Steve-O for suggesting that we get together to do this. Welcome to the channel, mate. How are you doing?
Very well, Gary, and thank you for having me. I was chomping at the bit to join, and excited for what we'll talk about tonight.
Yes, it should be a good one. So, Ray, as you know, I know you've watched most interviews. I usually open up by just asking you to tell us a bit about yourself for anyone who might not know you. Just like where do you live? Not where do you live? Where did you grow up? You can tell us where you live if you
Where's
want.
my address? What's my postcode?
So where you're brought up, who do you support, first memories of football, that sort of thing.
Yeah, class. Good icebreaker. Rather than just dive straight in, it's good to
Yeah.
break the ice a bit. I rate that. Well done. So Rey Quraishi, real name's Rehan, very Arabic name. I was born and bred here, actually in Tooting. There's a funny joke. If you're an Asian lad who was born in London, it's most likely you were born in Tooting, to be honest with you.
Okay.
So yeah. Just fact check that. So I've been living North London, South London a lot of my life because when my parents split, mum went up to North London, my dad South London, and then they got remarried and had kids, and I'm like the big brother of the family, which is great. And basically just really, Gary, a London rat all that time, to be honest with you.
Never moved out.
Go ahead.
Never lived anywhere else.
No, I was about to go into that. In 2014, myself and my wife went to Vietnam. We lived in Ho Chi Minh for about 4 years.
Oh, nice.
And we had our kids over there. We have twins, a boy and a girl, 7 years old. And in 2018, we moved back and, just kind of fell back into the rat race, unfortunately. And then I kind of regretted, why did I come back?
I bet it's bloody different. You couldn't get probably much different environments than those two, I guess.
Gary, it's a dramatic 180. What we get here, which is awesome, you can't get there.
Yeah.
But there again, what you can't get here, you can get there. It's kind of like a really weird kind of differentiation of cultures and everything. But I absolutely adored it. I loved it over there, as you can imagine. And I still got business ties over there as well. So every 2 years, every year, I try and go over there. Still got some business ties with some partners over there, and it's just a wonderful place to go. I always recommend, if you're going to go, just go to Ho Chi Minh. Ho Chi Minh is probably the best that I'd recommend over there. But so I guess that's really about me moving, traveling around, and everything like that.
I'm guessing you're an Arsenal supporter from the photos you sent me.
Yeah, like every single Arsenal, just all that Arsenal propaganda. But yeah, Arsenal fan. So I basically really started to love football when I was about 7. And, I saw this guy just scoring all these goals. And I said, Dad, who's that? And he goes, oh, it's Ian Wright. And I think it was like 91 or something like that. So I would have been about 7. And he goes, oh, he plays for Arsenal. It's a great team. It's a London team and everything like that. And, back then culture was being coloured was a bit different back then. And he goes, it would be good to support that team, basically. So, yeah, I basically loved Ian Wright, had his kit, everything like that. And, yeah, really the love affair went from there. I remember on school nights, we'd have to go to bed at 8 or something like that. But then when it was the finals, when Arsenal would be in a final, we were a proper cup team back then, like the the League Cup, Coca-Cola Cup final, they used to call back then, in the FA Cup final.
They used
I
to love
remember
the
staying
old.
up for that and watching it.
They used to love the Cup Winners' Cup final, Cup Winners' Cup when that was a thing, didn't they, Arsenal?
Yeah, it's the only European trophy we won.
Yeah. Do you remember the Naeem? I always remember one of my first memories of football, actually, certainly of Arsenal, was the Naeem lob.
The year after, yeah, 94.
Because they won.
Oh my
Was it
God.
PSG they beat, and then the following
The
year
year
they lost.
before, we beat Parma 1-0.
Parma,
Alan Smith scored because Ian Wright was suspended for the final.
Right.
And it was like a big hoo-ha. And then the next year we got to the final again, and Naeem just hit this ridiculous halfway line half volley, didn't he? The last minute of the game.
It didn't look like he meant it, to be honest. I think he claimed he did, but
like Ronaldinho.
Okay, Ray. So, yes, I guess your first memories of football going back to Ian Wright and that. Then, do you prefer is it Ian Wright or Thierry Henry? Who's your favourite?
Dennis Bergkamp.
Dennis Bergkamp. That's a good way out of the question. That's good.
Yeah, that's a good way out of the question. Ian Wright is my first Arsenal kind of footballing hero to do with Arsenal, but then Thierry Henry kind of, I guess, showed me just what football can be in this country. You know, he brought this kind of flair that I'd usually think of, in the foreign leagues as well. Because especially at that time, I still watch a lot of football in La Liga, a lot of football in Serie A. But when Henry came and just showed the way of playing, but he kind of fitted in beautifully with the team as well, isn't it? It wasn't just him. There were so many incredible footballers at that time.
I'd agree.
Arsenal.
I'd agree with you, though. Bergkamp was my favourite of the three to watch. Like, he was just may not have been as at the output, but he was brilliant to watch, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, about a month ago, he actually had a signing at the Emirates, and I don't usually do this kind of queue up all day to meet someone you really love to get an autograph or something like that. But I actually did that a month ago. I was at the Emirates, queued up for a good 3.5, 4 hours, and got a photo with him, and he signed something, a memorabilia of that day or something like that. And that was amazing. And my dad teased me. He's like, "Why do you do that?" I'm like, "Dad, that's the only player I'd do it for."
Yeah.
Anywhere. Like, I wouldn't do it for Messi, one of my favorite ever players. Probably my favorite ever non-Arsenal player is Ronaldo, the original Ronaldo.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it for any of them, but for Bergkamp, I basically tried to mold my game around him when I was playing as well. And a bit like what you said, he was the engine, wasn't he? If that made sense with our attacks.
Yeah, he was brilliant. So, when did you first get into fantasy football, and what are your earliest memories of fantasy football or FPL? If FPL was the first game you played.
Yeah, fantasy football would be Dream Team. So in 2004, my stepdad actually said, "Hey, I'm playing the Sun with my work friend." So my stepdad, Ian, bless him, and he goes, "Do you want to join?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So I joined, and at that point, how old am I? I'm literally 19, and ever since that year, I just got absolutely hooked. And back then, it was really good because you could win prizes every week. You could win money and stuff like that if you're manager of the week, or you can get prizes if you get a certain amount of points for certain players.
So, Ray, my mind switched off very briefly. What year was it?
2004.
Okay, it's pretty early then.
Yeah. So 2004, I started playing the Sun, and I got my friends involved with it. I got my family involved with it. I've done pretty well in the game. So this year is the first year I haven't played the Sun since that time, and I've had multiple top 1,000 finishes. And in the beginning there used to be like a good million players, but as the years went by, and then FPL obviously started to grow a lot more, and of course the Sun has its own kind of political aspect as well. Last season there was only about 300 or 400,000 teams, but you can make up to 10 teams, so you can imagine there's probably only like maybe 50,000 active managers. And that's where really my love started in fantasy football, because I mean, like everyone will probably say on the channel as well, I know Steve-O did, but it was all about the mini leagues.
Yeah.
And, when it came to the Sun, I would limit it. So I'd be kind of, if you like, the chairman of the league that we did for a good decade. As I said, all of you can only have one team. And what I loved about the Sun at the time, or even, I think last season was almost too much, you'd only get like 5 transfers a month.
So where would you say your leagues? Would you say your mini leagues online then in that, or?
Yeah. Mini, so you can make your mini league online. You can create a league online, and you obviously just use, like a mini league.
Yeah.
And and I also once did, when I was at uni, I did a draft. So because in Dream Team you didn't have the draft, we all got together uni friends, a good 7, 8, 9 of us, knocking some down, and it's like, right, we're going to do a draft. So obviously, you get it out the drawer, and then we go in order, serpentine order as well. It's brilliant.
I've never done one. I'd really like to do one, but I've always heard you have to really be in with a good group of people, or else everyone starts dropping out. But I'd love to do one at some point because it looks like good fun.
It was because with me, I have to play for something if you're doing it with friends. You know what I mean? And all of us put in like 20 quid. And if you're looking at 10 of us, 20 quid, 200, or even sometimes more than that. Sometimes we'll double down, and it's like, look, can I bring my new team in? And we're like, all right, if you bring your new team in, you got to pay in basically to bring that team in. And it was absolutely brilliant. And because it's a draft as well, it's like we'd do trades amongst each other. Like I remember one year in a draft, 2007-8, I remember so clearly, I had Ronaldo, and Ronaldo just killed the Premier League that year. That was the year he got 36 goals, the penultimate year before he left for Real Madrid.
Yeah.
And that's where the love and the fun game, but also what I liked about it was very controlled. So that's where my initial dream team.
Could there be like I imagine like there's transfer bungs. It's like, Ray, can I buy Ronaldo? Here's a fiver, or here's a beer.
Yeah, well, we tried a bit of that, yeah, but we kept it very kind of, because I was ultimately the chairman, if you like, and we all had access to the Excel sheet.
You're inscrutable. Or...
Yeah, exactly. I just kept everything under the table. It's like, yeah, it was just a fiver, right? And kept like 300 quid. But what happened is that every week I would say, right, who's looking at transfers? Here are the players available. And we'd basically go with whoever's bottom of the league at that time would have first choice every week, of the players that are available. And then we could do trades if we wanted to and stuff like that. But it was a lot of fun because I did it for 3 years doing uni with my uni mates. And it was brilliant. You can imagine it was so much fun. It really was.
So, Ray, one of the main reasons I wanted to get you on the channel, and the viewers already know because the thumbnail will probably have given it away a bit, is that you decided to quit FPL this year. But I want to put that aside for a bit and talk about that when we come to talk about mental health. So maybe we can start off like I do in most interviews, talking a bit about your content creation experience. So I've only really seen you on Elite FPL. I know you've been on Juice, but I'm not really too aware beyond Elite FPL of your sort of content creation journey. So maybe you could tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So how it really started. So I've actually had X, or formerly known as Twitter, I think since like 2011 or something like that. Like I've actually had an account for a very long time.
Yeah.
But I never used it whatsoever, like at all. Like I just had it open, but never actually used it. And then in 2019, 2020, the normal group I'm part of, the massive cash league I'm part of with one of the Dream Team mini leagues. That first year, we actually voted to do FPL that year. The first year, Dream Team always won, and we're putting in loads of money like stupidly. And they did Fantasy Premier League, they did FPL that year, and I was like, oh, fucking whatever. Like, and someone dropped out and said, I'm not going to play. And they go, Ray, do you want to log in? And I was like, yeah, sure, because I don't want to make my own. So I actually used his login to make a team. And I finished, I think, 4th in that league. And it's his email. It's not even my email. And I finished like 250,000 or something like that. But I really enjoyed at the time of how detailed the game was. Is that, you don't have 11 players, you got 15 players, and then you got all the chips and everything like that.
There's a lot in there.
And then in 2020, 2021 is when I actually started to really get enthralled in like YouTube and just watching people, watching people like the FPL Wildcats and Imfria. I think you'll know some of these people, JNO, Brett from FPL TV. Andy at the time, Scout were growing, Hub were growing, it was all very much at its foundation of growth. And I would really watch Wildcats quite a lot, FPL Wildcats with Nimfria, JNO, Brett, and Kurt.
I didn't realise they were still around in 2021.
Well, this is something in 2020, yeah, they went up until 22. But here's a story, and I don't even think you know this, but so I would join in on their live chats and do chats and stuff like that. And then one episode, they actually had a guest on, Glenn Kitely, who's been on my channel. I've been on his channel as well. Top guy from Kenya, Arsenal fan. So obviously he's a top guy. And I suddenly said, oh my God, you're having guests. I'd love to be a guest. And I'm one of those guys, I just ask, like, what's the worst you could say? No. Okay, cool. I'll just move on.
I'm the same.
And they actually just said, I said, I'd love to be a guest. And I was already kind of in the live chat active, asking questions and retweeting and all this kind of stuff, as you do when you're growing in the content sphere or in the social sphere. And then what happened is that they actually said, okay. So they actually brought me on a Halloween episode, and I dressed up as a Grim Reaper.
Okay.
So I was in a Grim Reaper. JNO had a mask on. Kurt, I think, had a Pokemon, one of the blue Pokemons. I don't remember the name of the Pokemon. Brett was just using graphics to show himself looking different every single time. And I think Nymphreo was in a cat outfit or something like that. It was absolutely brilliant. Had so much fun. And then afterwards, I said, guys, if there's a spot available, I'd love to join. So I actually became a Wildcat in 2021. So I was actually part of a good 15, 20 streams as part of the team.
Oh, right, so you're regular then?
I was part of the team. For that, and so I'd be on the live streams and stuff like that. And I think from there, that's when I kind of started to grow. Because when I joined the Wildcats, I think I had 300-400 followers. And then suddenly I went up to 2,000. And then what happened? Spaces started to really become quite prominent.
So when you say join the Wildcats, I'm imagining you joining some, what was that kids group? With some superhero team of. Sorry. Sorry, mate. Sorry, go on.
No, keep going. I want to see how much you dig this hole,
my mind's kind of didn't go as far as I thought it was going to go.
Oh, you mean the Thundercats, yeah?
Thundercats.
Yeah, I became one of the Thundercats.
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah. Sorry, mate. So you're doing the Wildcats,
and then one thing I saw is that Spaces was starting to become quite prominent.
Okay.
On Twitter, so they released the Spaces function. Where you can just start recording, you can get speakers and.
I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is, to be honest.
Oh, so basically, what Spaces are on Twitter is that you can actually start a live audio stream, and people can join that audio, and they can either be speakers or they can be listeners.
Only audio.
So, for example. Yeah, so you and I right now could do this over Twitter on Spaces on an audio.
All right.
We're just talking and speaking, and then people come in as audience members, and you can invite them to speak. And then obviously, if you're one of the facilitators, you can kick them out as well. And I think what really worked well for me is what I noticed with all these live streams and on the big channels and stuff is that they put all these comments down and no one's answering them. If you look at some of the big hitters, they're only... they're responding to super chats, or they'll just see 1 out of 10 because they're just scrolling so quickly, isn't it? It's a conveyor belt.
You can't read them yourself, can you? Even
you absolutely can't. So what Spaces I found was like a voice for the voiceless on FPL. So I'd hit up a FPL space or something like that, and then you'd see people that I recognize on the chats of some of these streams. They'd be like, "Hey, come in. What do you think about this? What are your plans this game?" I'll just title it. You can pin your FPL team on there as well, and people can have a look and you talk. And then what happened? It became like a social hangout almost for FPL. And then loads of people started to grow themselves. And I think that's what got me from 1,500 to 5,000, within 3 or 4 months.
On Twitter.
I was
on Twitter.
Yeah, on Twitter here, because I was just honestly, every day, every 2 days or so, I'm doing one live. I'd speak to people like Sonaldo when he was initially kind of growing. I'd do it with him. I remember getting Abdul on one once upon a time, and then just grew from there. And I'll just keep going, Gary, until you pause. Is that cool? I'll just keep...
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can go on. And then I was hungry to then write a bit of content, actually. So I kind of thought, how can I do this? And then I kind of bumped into...
sorry, Ray.
FPL.
I'm not going to
go ahead. Sorry.
If I do know you've only got another hour and 5 minutes, so I may cut you off at some point, but I won't do it now.
Okay. So basically, what happened is then I started to talk with other people about, I'd like to actually write some content here or there. So all about FPL are, Surya, they're quite big in regards to FPL content. So I wrote a couple of articles for them on their website. And then I joined something called the FPL Way, where I was actually starting to release a lot of threads. So season before last, I think I released about 30 to 35 threads in regards to player threads.
Okay.
So it could be from Madueke to Pedro, whoever. So basically, I'd watch a game, I'd do screenshots, I'd do the whole circle around and then movement and compare the data and stuff like that. And that helped me grow a bit as well. And and then last season, and then 2 seasons ago, I joined another pod called... Only One Bonus Point. me and my friends, basically, I joined them. They invited me. I did about a season and a half with them, but basically, it was a lot of content, as you can imagine. I enthralled myself so much in it because I loved it.
So
But then that love of leisure became a big
next
man.
couple of questions I usually ask are, so maybe we can try and fit them in here. What
Please.
are the early experiences like, and how have you changed? It sounds like very early on you're really enjoying it. Did that remain, or has that remained the case?
Last season, I'd say by October last season is when I was like, oh, this is like a stress now.
Yeah.
Because, I'm got a very obsessive personality. Like if I enjoy something or if I'm doing something, I'm like all in. I'm not like a halfway house kind of guy.
Yeah.
And because of my obsessive personality, I started to put pressure on myself, including my YouTube channel as well, where, I've invited a lot of guests to talk about their support of their team, like James playing FPL with Spurs, Nima, Arsenal, Abdul, Man U, a lot of pretty well-renowned FPL content creators to talk about football, and it helped, grow my channel and grow my own following as well. But what was happening is because of all the pressure I was putting in myself, I wasn't enjoying it anymore. It didn't become a leisure anymore, Gary. It started to become a bit of a job.
Yeah.
And because of that, and because of the content of how much oversaturation there is of content, and also how the game is pretty much unlimited transfers, to be honest. A couple of hits here or there, it became all encompassing to the point that I was starting to affect my mental health.
Yeah, maybe we'll get onto that a bit when we get onto why you quit. I'll just say that I do have a bit of a, even though I've only been doing this for a month and a half, the one time it pissed me off was I got to my computer and I think I've got to make a video tonight, but I was like, I don't know what to make one on, and I was feeling stressed, and at that point I just didn't make a video for 4 days, which is like the longest I've gone since I started the channel. But I mean, if it's affecting me after like 6 weeks, then I can only imagine how much it could affect someone. I think I've got a very obsessive personality as well, so I could. So what would you say? Again, we'll go on to the why you quit in a minute. What would you say are the positives and negatives of being a content creator? Maybe if you put your sort of obsessive nature aside from it, like generally, what would you say are the positives and negatives?
The positives absolutely are the community aspect, something I really miss now, but we'll dive into it a bit later.
Yeah.
I actually had some really cool conversations around FPL that then ventured nicely into life.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
So you and Steve, you're quite good mates outside of just the YouTube space now, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I mean, the funny thing about Siva as well, FPL didn't connect us at all, actually.
Oh, really?
Not at all. I saw one of his random vlogs. I then contacted him on X and I said, I really enjoyed your vlog and stuff like that. And listened to a couple of episodes on Elite FPL, joined a couple of streams live. But I was just watching because I just enjoyed the content. I didn't actually care about the FPL.
Yeah, me too when it comes to their channel.
And then I said, look, like, I'd actually like to converse with you a bit. Like, would it be cool if we trade numbers? We traded numbers, and then ever since then, to be honest, since probably November last year, Gary, we've been voice noting, messaging and stuff like that. And I know he said it as well, but there's no reason that we're not friends for like the rest of the time now. And the reason I say that is because we both give and take, like, every day we're communicating with a voice note and stuff like that. But apart from he's a very different case because he's actually a friend. But the community aspect was brilliant because, it's like, oh, Ray, what do you think about this? I'd get randomly tagged and then I'll be invited on Spaces. I'll be invited on some channels as well. The FPL meets, I was one of the original founders as well after Nima, so I went to quite a few in the beginning and connected with great people over there to talk football, drink, enjoy, have a laugh, go out clubbing and stuff like that. So those were the real positives when you treat it as what it should be, which is just a bit of playtime.
Yeah.
The negative is the toxicity around, I guess, kind of the audience, not necessarily the actual content creators, but the audience.
Yeah.
For example, I'll throw a name out here because I did the other day as well. Is like, Bakar. I don't know the guy at all. I don't know Big Man Bakar. But basically, it's like, look, if you want extra tips,
from Hubble,
if you want extra tips, is a cost. And there was this massive backlash. And I said, hold on a minute. You're not being forced to pay. It's just if you want extra tips and stuff like that, here's a payment. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. And I think entitlement is something which has massively increased during the 4 years when I initially got into FPL as well. In the beginning, I thought it was very much like, we're all playing, we're all trying to beat each other, but it's all in good jest. But now, especially last season, I felt like it was becoming a bit toxic as well. And also the content, Gary, all of them, they're pretty much coming off the conveyor belt. Like iRobot, the example I was giving, it really is true because I've seen it in action, but I'm not going to throw any names. And I've also been sent their WhatsApp groups as well, where they're discussing, okay, what time are you going to be doing the schedule? This is the player we're going to use, but I'm going to use this specific angle of Haaland. These are the colors. So when you look at the thumbnails of all of the major players, they're all the bloody same.
You think
so there was no original content for me.
You think if they were communicating with each other, they'd be trying to make sure they weren't all the same?
Exactly.
That makes no sense.
When you look at the thumbnails, it's even the same bloody player. I remember last season, you see all like the big four, big five, apart from Let's Talk Andy, because he doesn't involve himself with that, which I highly respect because I guess he's like the original, if you like, in regards to individual content creator.
I don't need to. I've been doing it before these guys.
Yeah, shit. Yeah, exactly. Well, while you in Mama's belly, I was already putting the shit down. You know what I mean? But with all the others, you'll see the color coding is pretty much the same as well. To go with the FPL colors. But
you're mentioning a big man Bakar leads me on to saying I wanted to ask you before we get on to why you left. So this may be absolutely nothing, or it might lead us to a discussion. You say you're Steve-O's FPL consultant, and you've also got that on your Twitter profile as like your first thing. Is that actually a job, or is that just a joke?
It was a piss take during pre-season.
Okay.
When Steve-O got me on, I'll be like, I'll just be your bloody FPL consultant now. He goes, yeah. so we just ran with that. We absolutely ran with that because when Steve-O and I met in Victoria in July, it was the first time we've only ever met once. And when we met, 4 hours absolutely flew. We weren't like getting plastered or anything like that. We just had a couple of drinks, talking, laughing. And it was just like, we've been friends forever.
Yeah.
And then he spoke about, and I told him I'm going to quit because prior to that I was saying, I did the Patreon recording of when I quit or why I'm quitting is that he then said, well, on Saturday nights, Ray, there is space free. And would you like to cover with me about reviewing the game week and then reviewing the games on Saturday? And then you can then revert it to FPL as well. And I said, yeah, sure, put my name forward. He did it with the moderators, and he said, like, by a landslide, people said, yeah, get Ray on. And then ever since then, I've been doing it. And but the thing that's prevalent as well is I still play Telegraph heavily. So all of these assets I'm talking about, Gary, it all relates to me as well, because if Pedro's a good asset in FPL, he's a good asset in Telegraph.
Okay. I don't think we can put it off any longer. We're going to have to dive into it because we keep talking around it. So just to give myself my own channel to plug a bit. So mental health and research. So mental health and FPL is a big focus of the channel. I've done research on it with FPL Raptor and colleagues. So I'll give a few shout outs to videos on my channel. FPL mental health tips from a psychologist, where I give some tips on if you're struggling with your mental health and FPL, some tips on how to not struggle. And also some of my other videos like what's a good rank, should we listen to deadline streams, have a kind of mental health aspect of them. But anyway, Ray, to get back to yourself. So I did listen. So you have talked about this publicly at least once before, although it was on a Patreon recording with Steve-O, which I did listen to last night. So I kind of know the reasons behind it. So I've kind of got some follow-up questions that I may or may not ask, depending on how much you go into it. But basically, you decided to quit FPL this season. Can you explain to us why?
Yeah, I think in November last year, it was getting really tough on me because, kickoff's at 12:30 and at 10 a.m. I'm in front of my laptop, Gary. And I got on a Saturday. The weekends are family time. The kids have been at school. I've been working. Wife's working as well, so we all get time together. And at 10 a.m. I'm like, all right, guys, love you. I want to go in front of the laptop now. Literally, the door's closed.
In my Deadline stream video, I do strongly urge people basically not to watch Deadline stream. I don't strongly urge them, but I for exactly that reason as much as anything else.
And I was, and really in November, I just sat there and said to myself, can I swear?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. I was just like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, this is absolutely ridiculous. Like, I'm putting all this time in for myself in this game where I don't get paid. And, what am I really doing here? Like, even with the mini leagues and stuff like that, it's like the juice is not worth the squeeze whatsoever. And so in November, and with all the content I do, like I do a weekly stream, and then I go back to doing threads.
Was there any particular reason why it was in November, or was that
no
just the point?
I think that's just when, because that season I was kind of thinking about whether I need to play FPL, but it felt reactionary, and I'm a person who doesn't like to be reactionary, which hilariously what was happening in FPL is I was becoming a reactive manager, completely against my way of working. So in November time, I was kind of like, right, this is a real slog now. And then I couldn't really speak to my counterparts about it, if that makes sense. Like if I'm speaking to the guys that I'm doing a streaming with, they're like, oh, Ray, you'll be fine, blah, 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 blah. It's just a phase. Yeah. I'm speaking to people on Spaces, I get the same thing.
And
my threads come.
They're not going you to quit and lose you, particularly in the middle of a season, if you will.
Well, and it's something with me as well. I have too much self-esteem and obviously respect to them to just leave them like that, if you know what I mean. And so really Steve-O was the first person I kind of spoke about it to, because he understood that mental aspect because of his experiences and his battles that he goes through as well.
So just in regards to so for the rest of that season, last season, I guess, you're really not enjoying it from November onwards?
Correct.
Yeah. A struggle to get through sort of thing?
Yeah, I think it was more of, my rank kind of showed that as well, is that I was doing reactive things, making choices where I'm like, I don't really care. But I'm saying I don't really care, and I'm still investing so many hours in it. And also, I think the perfect example is that last year I went to Vietnam, and my whole journey, it was a 13-hour flight. 10 of those hours were from recorded YouTube FPL videos. And I'm just like, this is mad. Like, this is just so silly.
It's probably every other video is repeating the same thing anyway, so you're listening to the same thing.
Oh, it's just a different fucking voice. It's the same thing. Captain Haaland. All right, A, B, Captain Haaland. All right, cool. I spent another 4 hours looking at data that I already looked at as well.
Yeah.
But instead of me reading it, it's being read out to me. And then it was showing in my performances when I'm looking back at videos as well. Like, I don't have the energy I have now. It'd be very much like you know what I mean? Like head up, like, I don't want to be here kind of thing, But I wanted to make sure that I gave myself the time to transition myself away, Gary. I was starting to do less streams. The threads came down pretty much like a bullet, my own threads. Other things I was connected to as well. I was kind of saying to them like, look, I am going to really take a step now, so that by the time preseason came, Gary, I was already sure of my decision.
So do you think if you hadn't have been a content creator, you might have just packed it up last November instead of waiting until the end of the season?
If I hadn't been a content creator, I think I'd still be playing FPL.
Okay.
Even like a low-grade content creator, if that makes sense.
Okay. That was one of the things I was going to point. So again, the reasons you quit, so it's taken up a lot of your time. What are the other reasons beyond that you...
The mental stress as well, because like I was saying about the fact that I'm an all-in kind of guy, especially with something I love, is that a ridiculous one is, oh my God, why didn't I captain player A and it's 1 a.m. at night and I'm trying to get sleep? I'm just like, it's just because of the oversaturation of material that's out there as well. And also the fact that I'm quite analytical anyway. Like, I'm a project manager by trade, Gary. So, with all of these, you have contingency plans, you have sprints, and you have plan A, plan B, plan C. That's basically what FPL is. It's a data game. Yeah. And because I was spending almost as much time on the data of a stupid game with my job, is mentally it was starting to actually trigger me a little bit. Because what Dream Team did to me a while ago when I was actually dating my missus back in 2008 is I was actually it was actually affecting my weekends when I'd have a shit game week.
Mm-hmm.
And what was happening in the beginning of last season, the exact same thing was happening. And that's the first time in 15 years that happened. And that's when I'm kind of like, right, take a step back. But because of the fact, like you were saying, because I was in content still and still attached to a lot of different content boards or however you want to say it, I wanted to respectfully, if you like, serve my time.
Yeah. Sounds like a prison sentence.
Yeah, but it's self-inflicted.
Yeah.
Like the thing I've done, I'd like to say, is that I put myself in it, if you know what I mean. Like, I have no one else to blame, and I'm not one of those guys anyway that likes to point fingers. I made the choice. I made the commitment, per se. I grew myself to a certain point as well. And now I'm like, look, it's not worth it anymore, you know? It's actually making me upset. It's making me sad. I'm not doing other great things that I could do as well, you know? And you might get to it in one point as well. But since quitting FPL, I've finished like 5 books, you know? And that's you know, like some half finished, you know, some that I've left for so long because I'm like, well, I don't have to look at the data anymore because there's only so much you can do in Telegraph. Seriously, I'll start doing other things like reading books, start, you know, looking at good YouTube videos again. And I'll be honest with you, buddy, spend more time with my family, which I know sounds really sad, but it's completely true.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So would it be fair to say you were one point I would make is, you know, you're saying that because you do a lot of data analysis and stuff as part of your job, it kind of feels like you're repeating a job. I know from some of the research we've done, people that maybe don't do that as part of their job, I don't know, maybe they work in manual labour or something, they actually really love it because of that aspect. So I think it's interesting to have that comparison. But what would it be too far? I don't want to put words in your mouth to say you're addicted.
Not at all. Oh, yeah.
In a negative
Completely
sense.
addicted. Oh, yeah, 100%. 100%. When you had the stream with Sivo on Elite FPL, and then the conversation came about me, is when you were talking about the alcoholic thing, I completely agreed. And I think you used a great example of, well, when you use me as an example, if Ray went past the pub and he had a quick sip of alcohol, do you think he'll be able to walk away or get back into it? And Sivo very honestly said, no, Ray will get back into it because he knows me. It's completely true.
Yeah.
If I made a dead team, as some people suggested this season, including Sivo, is that I said, no, I won't leave it because I know what I am. I know who I am. And it did become addiction. Addiction to the point where I'm not sleeping properly. I'm not thinking properly. I wasn't actually working properly anymore, mate.
Yeah, I remember you said in that Patreon video you were spending like 2.5 hours a day on FPL related stuff. Was that right? 2.5 hours.
Yeah, so if I'm creating sprint plans for a project or kickoff boards and stuff like that, because project management a lot is about, you know, creating boards, creating plans and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, on my phone, I'll have on YouTube FPL Wire, for example, you know, to just hear them in the space in my AirPods kind of thing, rather than music or audiobook or something like that. So it wouldn't be 2.5 hours of solid, like, oh my God, completely focused content, but there was always content around.
Something going on, yeah. So one of the reasons I wanted to set up that addiction analogy is to make myself have a metaphor running through. Withdrawal symptoms, basically. So you've decided you're going to quit at the end of last season. The game launches pre-season, first game of the season. Is there withdrawal symptoms there?
Yeah, the week before the season started, I was struggling. I was struggling because
the hands were shaking and.
Oh yeah, no, I was like making, you know, like Plan FPL and FPL Team, all these fantastic planners. I'm like making teams, and I was literally saying to myself, like, oh yeah, well, you could just fucking do it. No one will know. You know, I was literally saying stuff like that. Like, no one will know. Fuck it. I'll just say with family. I have my family group. So you know, we got one from Australia.
That's the alcoholic as well, isn't it? Like, I can just have a drink, no one will know, and I won't tell anyone or whatever.
Until suddenly I'm passed out, pissing my pants somewhere. You know what I mean? but basically, I was like, no, don't worry about it. And I'd say from the fortnight before the actual season started to the week before, so that week, I made drafts. I started to think about what it would do if I played the game and no one knows, apart from family where I have my chats.
Yeah, I was going to say, apart from Steve-O, have you like said to your wife or anything you're giving it up? Or is it?
Yeah, she knew it was a big deal.
Right.
She knew it was a big deal. Yeah, because I sat her down and had a real conversation with her. And the family I've had a 3-year mini league with as well. Like we got, we're family from everywhere. It's like I'm here in England. We got ones in Singapore. We got ones in Australia. We got ones in Norway. We got this big mini league between family, and there's only 8 of us, and the banter is really strong there. But I also shared with them about why I'm doing it as well, and they got it. Some of them didn't get it until they watched that Patreon video,
right?
Because rather than re-explain how the wheel was made, that's why I really wanted that recording, and Sivo gave me permission, like appreciate him. I said, can I record this, put it on my YouTube? Once I extracted, put it on my YouTube, I just sent it out to all the important people. Right. So then rather than ask me questions, listen to this first and then ask me questions.
That makes sense. I was slightly wondering why you put it on your channel, but that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And I need the views.
So again, I'm going to continue my poorly bad put together addiction thing. So that's called FPL your heroin. Heroin is in the drug, yeah? Because as you say, one of the reasons. So I didn't think I let you, but one of the reasons you don't like it, for example, I know is because you can make infinite numbers of transfers, etc. But you're now playing the Telegraph. Is that correct? Is that like methadone, the heroin substitute drug? Do you get what I mean? Like, is it filling in for FPL, but not as dangerous to you? Does that make sense?
No, it's not really filling an FPL at all. Actually, what it's done. So I've been playing Telegraph for 7 years.
Could you tell us about the differences between that and FPL and why you?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I've been playing that for 7 years. So it's actually a game that hasn't replaced at all. It's still the game that had a certain spot of my leisure of football, if that makes sense.
And that predates when you started playing FPL, doesn't it?
Precisely, and it hasn't really changed too much. Maybe slightly up because I've put a bit more Telegraph content out there. I made a community on X. The actual official Telegraph game actually joined that community, which is pretty awesome as well. But let's say in football, it had 15% before of importance, gone up to 20%. That other percentage that FPL had is the other things I'm doing away from football to fill that space, fill that, if you like, recovery. But the actual differences about the game are actually perfect for someone like me. You only get 40 transfers a season. That's it. And you just have your 11 players and there are no chips. There's no captaincy, there's no bench boost, there's no all of that kind of stuff. And you get points and the points they're subjective, they're objective, Gary. They're not subjective. There's no opinion here. There's no bonus points. It's the old school. You get a goal, you get these points, you get assists, you get these points, you get tackles, you get these points and stuff like that. Another great thing is it's running kickoffs as well. If Saka plays at 12:30, I can then transfer him out for the 3 p.m. game and bring in Garnacho. I'll still get the Saka points. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it takes off, because I'll ask you in a bit like what you think FPL could do to help the mental health base. But it's getting rid of a lot of those things. Like, you can't make constant amounts of transfers. Which means you're not watching price rises, if there even is any. You're not having to make deadline streams, things like that. It eliminates that aspect.
Exactly. I actually think price changes would be a great thing in the Telegraph. I actually love that aspect of fantasy football. I think price changes are great because then you can't just get anyone whenever you want. However, I don't want to be stomping on your chapters here, but
no, it's fine.
Announce it. Announce that price changes are happening. Salah's going to go up. Let your audience know, and then they have a decision to make rather than guess. Use algorithms like Live FPL and Fantasy Football Fix that are 85 to 90% correct, but not 100% correct. You know what I mean? Make the game more engaging. That's what Telegraph does. It's a very simple game, and you get points for the FA Cup. That helps.
By the way, don't worry about timestamps. Black Box commented the other day saying we'd really appreciate some timestamps, and then I guess this is kind of goes into what you were saying earlier on about I'm doing this for a laugh. No one's paying me. I've not got a Patreon. I'm not going to go back and put bloody timestamps all over my video.
Yeah.
So sorry, Mark.
It was probably Az.
Sorry, Az. It's not happening, mate. Unless you want to set me up a Patreon or something. So one thing I was gonna say, you kind of touched on it a bit earlier. You said you'd still be playing if it wasn't for the content creation side of it. So could you explain that a bit more? I'm guessing that then therefore was part of the reason beyond just being a player.
Yeah, definitely, because I I committed myself to being someone who's renowned at the game, if that makes sense, as a half decent player.
Mm.
And in the 3 seasons that I played, all three I got a top 100k rank.
It's good.
And what was happening is that through the spaces and through a decent rank history where top 100k became a lot more important as there was more players, more content, everything like that, is that I then put the pressure on myself. And then people would say, Ray, here's my team. What do you think? So I'm innating myself in the pressures of their team to do a good job for them, to be the consultant, as the joke says.
Yeah.
And so I was taking myself too seriously in the game because I was putting the pressure of putting all that content out there to make myself look like someone who knows what he's talking about, but still be original. That was a big part as well. I wanted to be original and stand out a little bit.
Mm.
And also from the fact that I need to make sure I perform well in the game so that I'm reputable when people think about Ray and FPL, if anyone wants to have me as a guest and stuff like that. So I was actually taking myself too seriously, Gary,
Yeah.
in the game.
As a well, I guess that's as a player and as a content creator. So if you hadn't been a content creator, you don't think you'd have put that same pressure on yourself?
I think so, and I actually think I would have done better because I wouldn't have second guessed myself so much at times. Like perfect season in my first season where I got 33k, my first season in air quotes where I got 33k. Harry Kane was absolutely the best triple captain. I went for Salah instead, and I probably missed out on 10k because of that decision. So but the point being is that I was so seriously stubborn in my own movement, even though I didn't want to go for Kane because I'm like, why would I captain fucking Tottenham scum? That's basically what I was thinking the whole time because I'm a child. And but then when the years went on, more pressures were happening, and I was in more groups where we talk about our plans. And when you have too many cooks in the kitchen as well, it just comes out as a shit dish, and that's what basically was happening. Where I had to survive.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was the exact same season. I almost got in the top 10k. And didn't on the last day, but I forgot about it I was pissed off that day, but I forgot about it in 24 hours because I wasn't making content, I guess, it didn't really, it was still my best ever rank. I think I ended up 12k, so I was disappointed, but then I was happy. So maybe that reflects a difference between the non-content creation versus the content creator. So just two more questions on this before we just go back on to talk a bit more generally about mental health and FPL. I mean, you've kind of answered the first question, but I'll ask you it anyway. It's helped your mental health and stuff by quitting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not just about quitting, it's about filling in that gap. And I think during the time that I was transitioning away from FPL content, it was the content really more than the game itself.
Okay.
I had to fill it in with things. And that's where reading was happening, walking was happening, doing a bit more exercise, and just getting my head away. Listening to more other sports that I love. Like I actually love basketball. I love UFC quite a lot, MMA. Even WWE at times is a lot of fun. Tennis. So there are a lot of other sports that I brought back in, if you like, to fill that gap more. So, if you look at my subscriptions now, or in the back end of last season, there were only 2 that I was subscribed to, which were FPL Juice and Elite FPL.
Yeah, and now you've got a lot more varied interests on there.
Madly, yeah, absolutely.
So I think I can guess this, but you're not. Can you see yourself coming back next season or at any other point to FPL?
No, I've crossed the fence and the grass is green on this side. Mm-hmm. It really is. I couldn't quit fantasy football. I just can't. Because I do love picking your team and then watching a game, and I'm going to watch Brentford versus Palace, and I'm like, I've got Eze and Vissa. What's going to happen here? I love that aspect of every game can mean something. But unless FPL dramatically changed the game to the stuff I'm sure you'll ask at some point, I cannot foresee myself coming back because I love what I've become since not playing the game as a human being, Gary. I know that might sound a bit dramatic and extreme, but hey, I'm a dramatic and extreme individual. But, what I am now compared to this time last year as a human being, let alone playing a fantasy football game, it's just night and day. So
it makes sense. I mean, I'm a very obsessive. I actually used to have OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, when I was younger. So I know what it's like to get obsessed with something. So it certainly makes a lot of sense to me. So that is actually the next thing I'm going to ask you is about what changes they could make. But one of the reasons I wanted to get you on is I'm sure my channel has 148 subscribers. I am sure FPL are watching this.
Oh yeah.
But we do actually have somebody, and it's one of the reasons I wanted to get you on, that it has, I've done research into it, mental health, but someone it has affected them so much they have quit. And you're saying that's not because of fantasy football, that's specifically because of FPL. So they do, it's not like you've completely gone off fantasy football and run away to never play again. It's FPL, isn't it? So with that in mind, what do you think they could change that, may not tempt you back, but may stop people getting to the stage that you did, where they felt you needed to quit?
Yeah, I think one is these, the kickoffs. Like bringing to the first kickoff is absolutely viable. They do it in all other fantasy games around different sports as well. Like the NFL shits on FPL in regards to the amount of users. I think there are 100 million teams, and you can have
players.
Yeah.
100 million players. Bloody hell.
Users, teams. So we've got 10 million teams. They're not 10 million separate managers.
Yeah.
But I think they've got something like 100 million over there as well with the NFL.
Wow.
The NFL Fantasy, the official one. And you can do rolling kickoffs over there as well, a bit like what I was saying in Telegraph, including transfers and stuff like that.
What's rolling kickoffs?
I think if you do... Oh, sorry, like you got a game on Wednesday, you can make changes and it will count for Thursday as well.
So like you can change your captain, That's what
absolutely.
You could do in Sky that and stuff, couldn't you?
You can do, and I love that about Sky, and you could also do that in the Champions League as well. So one would be the kickoff, absolutely. I think just keep it completely open. Let people make those changes.
In a second, Ray? Something that springs to my mind there is that FPL in a lot of ways seems to be about making things more difficult with things like price rise changes. Whereas something like that, where you can change your captain, that's giving you more options. So rather than taking away things you can do in the game, potentially it's adding something into the game. Does that make any sense?
100%. 100%. Because what it also does as well is it gives us a choice of what we want to do during the game week. So, for example, if we have Visser playing at 12:45 and he gets a goal and you've captained him, now you have a choice. Do I want to keep my captaincy points on Visser, or do I want to move it when Haaland plays on Saturday? Okay, I'm going to move it on Haaland now. Just get the Visser normal points, not the captaincy points. And then if Salah blanks, then it's like, oh my God, and Haaland blanks, and you've captained Salah, then on Sunday you got Heung-min Son playing and he's in your team. It makes us more engaging. We'll enjoy the game more, in my opinion.
And the Premier League's point of view, they don't earn any money, as far as I'm aware, out of FPL. The whole thing is to drive more engagement with football, and you're going to be much more likely to be watching the game and engaging if you can change your captain and stuff, aren't you?
100%, because I played the Champions League my one time last year, and I think I finished like 9k something for my only year. And what I loved about the game was that captaincy change that you can do. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I enjoyed it so much because of that as well, because it gives us a choice. And like you said, you're actually more interactive on the website. As you said, it's only driving traffic in a positive aspect as well. So I think A, the kickoff, B, the captaincy chip, moving that. And I think a chip you can remove as well would be the bench boost. I think it's an awful chip personally, because you're basically shackling yourself from making changes to have a half decent bench, which usually does shit anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I would say with that, we do.
But that's a little thing compared to the other two.
All I was going to say is I think we do. You could hit that in any game week. I think just us overly engaged managers shackle ourselves by playing the wild card and having to have. Do you know what I mean? I don't think we could completely.
Oh, 100%. You're right.
We can't completely blame that one in FPL. I think we have to take our responsibility for that one a bit.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. It was a small one.
Yeah.
But and I think the last and the next one would be is I love price changes, but I think you should announce it, because again, what are you doing? You're driving more traffic into your. See, these changes that we're mentioning, forget bench boost, because that's just me being like, vindictive because I fucking hate the chip. But With the other two, with the kickoffs, the captaincy changes during the game week, and also the price change announcements of who the players are, what you're actually doing, you're driving more traffic and engagement into your website. It's actually only a positive aspect. But if FPL do that, what they will have to invest in is more servers, because basically the traffic is going to probably quadruple with just those 3 changes. But what you're going to do is, rather than have 10 million users, you'll have 20 million users.
Yeah.
Because you're making the game more open and interactive. No one gives a shit about draft, and no one gives a shit about the stuff they did last season, which I knew they wouldn't, where you have the challenges. I said after 1 month, no one will play anymore.
It's crap,
no one
isn't it?
plays
It's
anymore.
rubbish.
No one cares about that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
And it's just
Make the actual game more interactive.
When I've set up my team as well, the last thing I wanted to do, because obviously I'm going to do that afterwards, is then go and read the rules and make another team. Once I've done my transfer, I want to close my computer and do something else, basically. Not go and play for something that, create some stupid team that doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah. Make it all Asian team. I'm like, there's only 5 players.
They had some really stupid ones last year, like
the relegation ones.
That was it. I think I did play the first 3 or 4 just for a laugh, and then there was one like you could only pick players from the bottom 5 teams, and I was like, no.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, If you in the challenge, if you captain a Burnley player, you'll get triple points. I'm like, yeah, but they only get 1 point anyway. Steve will like that joke.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's a Burnley fan, isn't he? So I'm going to break this question in 2 parts. First of all, without thinking about quitting for the moment, if someone is struggling with their mental health and FPL, what advice would you give them, Ray?
One thing I was doing is just after the game week, good or bad, just switch everything off. Just get off social media. Give it 24 hours. Really actually helped me last season when I was transitioning of quitting FPL. Yeah, because I can't be reactive. I had to be proactive. I had to put my steps in. So switch off FPL. Put whatever message you want, and then switch it off for 24 hours. Do something. Go for a walk. Watch a program. I know he was talking about Game of Thrones, Steve the other day. Just spend time with the family. Just get away from FPL, and find a separate hobby that you can do, which you don't have to rely on at a specific time of a specific day, And what really helped me is walks. I love walking anyway, just long walks, get my AirPods on, get the AirPod Maxes on, just listen to some shit. Whatever pod around, something else that isn't related to FPL, switch off completely. So then when it's time for the new game week, you're completely fresh and you're ready to take it on as well. Because this is just, I think everything I've said has not been cringy, but it's a bit cringy. It is just a fucking game. You know what I mean? And ultimately is just, you can turn it off. Go back, that 24 hours of going radio silent of FPL content actually works beautifully. It actually works really well because you can get to focus on something else, look at something else, especially if it's an addiction for a lot of people, which it basically is for everyone, is that, you're turning off, but fill it. Don't just go cold turkey, fill it with something else. Mm. And I'd always say, do something active, like walking, gym, just go out to the high street, go out for a coffee, leave your phone at home. It's phenomenal. That's what worked for me. So I'd advocate that, obviously.
So I don't actually have this question written down, but it's kind of occurred to me as we have been talking. So we're talking about quitting, and people might think, that's a bit extreme. But I really don't think it is, because just in the last 2 or 3 interviews I did, Steve-O in the last interview said one season he was very close to quitting. Even Trigger Lips, who I interviewed, who's not come out on the channel yet, said that during COVID he actually did quit one season. I mean, he went back to it, but he actually did quit. I think it was like game week 28 in one season because he just wasn't enjoying it. And I myself, I think it was probably after my 4th season, I thought I'd had quite a few beers one night. You always think more than I have when I'm on this channel. And, you always think you see these great moments of clarity. And I was like, I could be doing so much more with my time.
I see the light.
Yeah, see the light. But then again, I would say I was one of the reasons I sympathise with you is I said I would say I was addicted to it 5 years ago, where I have managed to keep playing, but by significantly reducing the amount of content I listen to. But no, not even significantly. I still listen to quite a bit of content because I enjoy that, and I listen to content when I walk into the shop. I don't sit in front of my computer. It's always, if I wasn't listening to,
You've compartmentalized it, haven't you? You've
I would.
compartmentalized
If I wasn't listening to that, I'd be listening to something else, and I literally only spend half an hour looking at data on my team. But what I guess the question I'm asking is, what point do you think someone would be at where you would actually advise them to quit? Maybe if it's only for a season, where would you think that line would be?
Yeah, I think for myself, I can only ever, obviously revert to myself. We're all different, but is build a plan, and that's what I did. I literally sat there and built a plan. I built a plan of Rey Quraishi to quit FPL, his journey, and I literally wrote it on paper of how I'll do it. And and it's a bit like cigarettes as well, is that I've tried to support friends to eventually quit smoking, which have worked, and some that have not. And I said, just moderately decrease your amount until it gets to the point where you're not going to need it anymore. It isn't like, right, I'm a 20 pack a day, now I'm a 0 pack a day. It doesn't fucking work like that. Yeah, I don't care who you are, it just doesn't work like that. Is, just moderately decrease your content in this aspect to the point of where you're like, okay, I normally do 2 hours a day, now I'm doing an hour and a half a day, then an hour a day, and there's no rush. And I'd say that build a plan of that when you are decreasing content or FPL as the drug over here, is that what are you filling it with? I think that's the key thing. I think when I've spoken to people and some of them have said, Ray, I'm thinking of quitting FPL. I'm like, all right, well, what are you going to do? And then I'm not hearing anything with real substance, and they said, well, how did you do it? And I explained to them, well, I had to gradually do it day by day, week by week. So and then fill it with different things.
Again, I don't want to keep up like the alcoholic or drug analogy. It's like
not at all, please.
It's like an alcoholic.
But it's a great example though.
But it's like an alcoholic or someone who's addicted to heroin saying they want to quit, but then they haven't got any plans to actually achieve that goal. Is that what you mean?
They haven't yet. 100%. They've got no steps of when they decrease their certain amount of wherever their addiction is and how they're going to fill it. I think that's the thing that I keep challenging people. Okay, you're going to stop something. When people want to lose weight, I want to lose weight. Is when I want to lose weight, okay, what's the filler of not eating food? Okay, it has to be out going for walks. It has to be out doing something. I have to be doing something to fill that time that I normally do to eat shit, for example. And build your plan of how you're going to do it and then stick to it and have someone to help you with that, if that makes sense. With mine, my almost indirect help was the fact that I've got monkeys, my kids running around and climbing on me all the time that I can't even focus on, oh man, what about FPL? Yeah, which is brilliant. I absolutely love it. Is so proactively build a plan of how you're going to quit. And then the great thing about FPL is, okay, I'm going to quit at the season, or I'm going to quit by January. I'm going to see how I feel in January. Make a proactive plan so that, you can actually transitionally leave the game. If maybe quit's not the word, but leave the game is maybe the correct assessment.
Exactly, because it's not. I mean, the thing that it's not like with like smoking or alcohol is it doesn't actually do. Playing FPL itself does not do you any physical harms. You can always just stop for a season. And if you don't like it, I mean, obviously you really have enjoyed not playing. But if you really don't like it, you can just start again the next season. I mean, you can even start again in that season. It will affect your overall rank. But, it's, I mean, if you stop and you really do miss it, and, you don't think you're getting any benefits from it, you can always go back to it. It's not like no one's going to stop you, are they? It's not like an alcoholic relapsing. You just go back to it.
Yeah, I mean, deactivating my account was a big step. I actually deactivated it, and I deactivated it the day before the first game of the season. So it shows just how much I wanted to.
That I hadn't thought about. Does that get rid of your rank history?
Yeah.
So see, that is quite a big step for players like ourselves, isn't it?
Yeah. For one who's half decent at the game, yeah. I was like, well, there you go. At least I got screenshots.
That's exactly what I was going to ask. That's exactly what I was going to ask. Did you take a screenshot?
Instagram, X, my personal. But I think to round off the point as well is the fact that you can't Look, I'm not strong enough. Maybe that's the way of saying it. I'm not strong enough to just quit something. Yeah, it has to be moderately, transitionally moving away from it and filling it in with something else. It just has to be. Otherwise, I'm gonna go. I will relapse, Gary. All these extreme examples are absolutely true. Let's call a spade a spade. Yeah, it's an addiction, and the way to get rid of it for someone like me, who's a thinker, is I have to build a plan where it logically makes sense. And that's what it's done for me. Now, to answer a question that might not be there of, well, Ray, this year might be brilliant for you. You've changed as a man, you've changed as a manager, you can always come back next season. But I know myself well enough that if I do it, I'm going to go back into it and say, I'm back, bitches. People, FPL Juice, for example, he goes, Ray, when you're back, just let us know and you'll pundit again. And with Elite FPL as well, it might possibly help them because they'll probably want to get me a bit more involved, if that makes sense. And I'll be happy with that if I was still an FPL manager. And I just don't want to go to that space that it might take me to again. And the grass really is greener, bro. It's nice here.
And I'll say something that's come into my head when you were saying that is some people, I'm hoping most of my subscribers, viewers wouldn't think this, is what
thousands.
But it's what the hell are they talking about? We're talking about a game that's free. How can you be addicted to it? Why is quitting it such a big deal? What I'd say to those people is, as a psychologist, most people in the world don't get. This is going to be a bit of a weird example. Most people in this world will not get schizophrenia, but there are a certain number of people who will. Most people in this world will not become alcoholics, but there are certain people who will, because there are certain people with a predisposition, be it genetically or whatever, to get addicted for stuff. And it may seem simple to, the other 95% of people who can play FPL and not get like that, but for us people that can, us obsessive type people that can get into those sort of things, it is very important, isn't it?
100%. Yeah, it's different strokes for different folks kind of thing, isn't it? And I think the reason I was really happy when you invited me from listening to other streams as well is I'm like, Gary will get where I'm coming from. And I think that's the key part. He'll understand the mechanics of my brain in regards to why FPL affected me as well. Not only from obviously your line of work, but just listening to the way that you've spoken with the others as well, is that it's like, it isn't just like, Ray, it's just a fucking game, calm down. And that was a point, that was something I really wanted to say, I'm happy I didn't forget, is that when I was speaking to my friends who don't give a shit about FPL, when I told them I was not playing FPL anymore, I didn't actually go to them and say, oh, guys, I'm thinking of quitting FPL. What are your thoughts? They'd be like, it's just a game. What's wrong with you, virgin? Yeah. What actually I said is charming. These guys I've known 20 years and 25 years, best man at my wedding, but whatever.
Yeah.
And I said, what are your experiences of addiction? And then all of them were talking about addiction. Some would be like with porn, some would be with girls, some would be with certain sites, some would be with gym and all that kind of stuff. And they were starting to talk. And then when it kind of came to me, I just spoke to them about FPL. And then they could understand where I was coming from, because we all had an understanding of addiction, but obviously it was just in different, different directions.
This is a strange one, but I think it's worth mentioning. When so I told my mum, actually, I was interviewing she knows I've got a channel, and I said to her I was interviewing someone tonight who felt that he got addicted to FPL and decided to quit. And she said, oh, yeah, my friend has a son that did that. And basically what my mum doesn't know much about FPL, what her son was actually addicted to was Football Manager. And he was playing 16, 17 hours a day. I think his wife may have divorced him, or at least his girlfriend dumped him. He wasn't going to work. But when it's like that, when it's they know that you're sitting there and it's a computer game and you're playing 16, 17 hours a day, I think it's easier for people to imagine that as being an addiction. Do you get what I mean? Whereas when it's fantasy
100%.
football...
And I love Football Manager. I play the game.
Yeah, but when it's fantasy football and it's not actually something that you can sit there and play, I think people, particularly people who don't play FPL, find that much more difficult to imagine how you can become addicted to it. Because literally all we actually do,
completely.
It takes 2 minutes to press the buttons to make the transfers and put your captain in. The actual amount of time we spend playing is like two seconds a week, but it's all the other stuff, isn't it? You know what I mean?
It's the prep. The prep is the time.
Exactly.
The preparation
And
is the time.
I've tried to explain it to her 3 times, and she didn't get it. So I just I gave up in the end.
Yeah, Mum, it's Football Manager.
Exactly. Yeah. So I know you've only got about 15 minutes left. Before I know you've got.
No, please go on. Please go on.
So you go just end by asking how your FPL season's going. I can't really do that in this one. So I'll ask, how's your...
Well, my FPL team, Steve-O, isn't it?
Steve-O. Okay, no, but I was going to ask, how's your Telegraph season going?
Really, really well. Because, I've been at that point when I have had, 0 transfers with 7 games to go, like when I was a real novice at the game. But doing really well. I'm in the top 500 in the whole game. And it's out of 92,000, Callum told me. That's how many... teams there are on the game, 92,000. So 500.
Is that another one, sorry, Terry, where they can have another 10 teams per person? Or...
Yeah, you can make up to I think 5 teams or something like that. But I only have the one. I've always been like a 1-team guy in all these games.
What's the price?
Just one team I focus on. 10 grand.
Oh, decent.
I know, it's quite funny how it doesn't get the... Considering with FPL, you get a couple of squishy boards and football tickets that never arrive.
Sky Sports, because Sky Sports was like 100 grand or something, wasn't it? Ridiculously.
Yeah, 50 grand.
Yeah, I never know why I didn't play that. It's stopped now, isn't it?
Fucking idiot. Yeah, it stopped, exactly. But I'm 500 in the world at the moment, and I've only used 6 transfers, so I've got 34. And the average for the top 1,000 in the ranks at the moment, the average that has been used is 17 transfers. So I'm in a fantastic position.
You've used 2?
I've used 6.
6? Well, that's bloody good then, isn't it?
I'm in a really great position because when it comes Christmas time, that's when, you're juggling with loads of different transfers and injuries really prevalently happen as well. So, yeah, doing really well at the game. Top of my massive Cash Mini League. I extended my lead to 13 points. And there's a good 300 quid on the line as well. So that's what really matters.
Do you think you could actually win the overall thing?
Yeah, I think I'm in a good spot where I could because of the amount of transfers I have. Yeah, because that's what it becomes. I think this is the highest I've ever been at this stage of the season with this many transfers. I was once in the top 300, but I used 11 transfers by this time. And that's way too many. You really want to save your transfers. And what I love about Telegraph is you need the patience. You have to stick to these players.
Can you only make 1 transfer, or could you use
You can make 5 a week.
Okay, so you can make some serious changes if you want to, then.
Oh yeah. So for example, what I did the other day is I used 3 transfers to bring in Visser, Aitnori, and Foden, and the fucking expensive one's done shit in Foden. But now I'm gonna just stick to them for another 4 or 5 game weeks and then see where we stand.
Did I have anything
I actually genuinely think I can attack it this season.
Did I have any clips like wildcard or anything like that?
No.
Really? Because even Sky had that, didn't they? They had an overhaul or something similar to one.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't mind if they actually did that, and you still keep the amount of transfers you have.
Yeah. So I think at least 1 a season to refresh things up. I think would probably be good.
Funnily enough, I actually messaged Callum that he's kind of the guy who runs the game or the Twitter. Yeah. I think he actually owns the game, if that makes sense. And I said, listen, man, you should really think about bringing in a wild card because you're going to bring in a lot of new players.
Yeah.
Because as much as I love the game, it is still a little bit archaic.
Some of its strengths, I guess, come from being archaic, but probably hasn't picked up something.
Yeah, definitely, but exactly. No, you're fully right. But I think that's when they include the FA Cup. That's when you can really make some proper gains. Like suddenly,
what? The FA Cup's in it?
The FA Cup counts.
Really?
Yeah. So that's when a couple of years ago, I bought in Vinicius, and I think he got a hat trick against Barrow or something like that. That won me my mini league.
Wow. So you
I bought him in just for that game.
So I guess in that then you're looking. I mean, I suppose it's not too different for FPL. You're looking to get the best players, but you're looking to get the teams that are going to progress in the FA Cup.
100%, but that's exactly, and that's where the draws really matter. But another great thing as well is every player can be a viable asset. See, the thing is, they got tackle points, which are massive, which I don't have in FPL. So, for example, you can look on Telegraph. Every single starting player is a viable asset. For example, Gomez from Wolves, yeah, the CDM. He's brilliant in Telegraph because he's cheap and he gets loads of tackle points because he makes like 10 tackles a game.
What about the League
Yes.
Cup? Does that include?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Okay.
It doesn't. I wish it did, but no, it doesn't.
It's a bit of a really strange.
Otherwise, everyone's gonna go for fucking Leicester players and shit like that, isn't it?
It's just a strange. It seems a bit of a strange. Didn't they get knocked out by Man United?
I'm just saying, for example.
Yeah.
The one game Man United won, yeah.
It seems like a strange arbitrary choice to include the FA Cup, but then exclude the League Cup. I thought it would be one or the other. I don't know. Yeah.
I'll get you to join next season, bro. Trust me, you'll love it.
All right, let's keep it on Telegraph. Most people, you can stop watching now because if you're not interested in the Telegraph, this is going to be my last.
If we had live viewers, it would go down to 1, and that would be me on my burner account.
What tips would you give to a Telegraph player to have a good season? I usually ask it for FPL, but I'll ask it for Telegraph. Let's do it.
Yeah, stick to. This is really obvious alert. Good players, good teams. Yeah, you really need that in Telegraph. Yeah, good players, good teams. You can have 11 players from the same team. Yeah, so there's no limit on the amount.
11 players from the same team.
Yeah. Like people do things as they get blocks, so they get like an Arsenal block, which means I'll get the back 5 of Arsenal. Yeah, and just play them every game. Yeah, and
wouldn't be much good this season. No offense.
It'll be shit this season because we fucking suck at the back at the moment. We're just pants right now. But good players, good teams, and just a couple of gambles here or there. Like, for example, I had Semenyo for a couple of game weeks. I've had Robinson for ages. I've had Murillo since day one. Murillo, Robinson, I've had since day one. They've been brilliant for me because they're so cheap. But good players from good teams and stick. Don't twist so early. Give it 5-6 game weeks. Survey the land, see how it's all looking before you start making transfers. And that's it. And then it's just a patience game, Gary. It really is. And I think that's what I love about it. It's just a patience game, you know. Saka didn't play a couple of weeks ago. I still kept him in my team. I didn't need to sub him out. If he wasn't available in the next game, then I'll take him out. Does that make sense? Because you don't make enough points to be reactionary in Telegraph because it's literally goals, assists, tackles, clean sheets. You know, the old school kind of scoring system. There's none of this. If you got an 8 rating, you'll get Starman, all this bollocks. There's none of that. What I like about it, it's very objective. It's very black and white. There's no opinion that goes into Telegraph.
Yeah, I guess it's the opposite of FPL. It encourages patience.
It's complete opposite of FPL, where the gambles help you.
Than knee jerk.
Yeah, I tease Steve-O about it because you know, when it comes to the start of the game week or when I'm about to go on to stream with him, that same day, I'll look at a plan of things I think he could consider. But then I always say the joke, yeah, but you're so bloody knee-jerk that you're just bringing a player you think is going to go up in price. So there's no point in me sharing you this plan. Because we're very opposite players.
I said, before I'd even ever spoken to Steve-O, I said in one of my early videos that he's a very knee-jerk manager. And he got really pissed off with that. We didn't get really pissed off, but he said, I agree. He was talking to Jason. He said, I agree with most things he says in his videos, FPL the beer, but I'm not a knee-jerk man. But then he came on my bloody channel and told me he was a knee-jerk manager. Steve, I've done it. I did this the other day with Trigger Lips. I spent so long talking to him the other night, he's stuck in my head. I'm going to be calling my girlfriend Steve-O or something.
Oh, that's sexy, mate. Yeah. Just before the night when you lay it down, you'll be like, oh, Steve, I've been waiting for you.
Yeah, I haven't got a girlfriend at the minute, thankfully. That came out. But Ray, it's so good having you on, mate.
No, I really appreciate it. I mean, Gary, if you've got any more questions or anything, let's just get into it. It's okay if it goes over by a few minutes. Unless you ask anything you wanted to.
No, it's fine, mate. It's fine. I need to do what we were talking about beforehand after having a couple of beers whilst we've been talking. but thanks so much for coming on. Is there anything you wanted to say before we ended?
No, not at all. I mean, first of all, Gary, thank you so much for inviting me on. I've really enjoyed the streams that you've been doing, and it's good to have original content again, rather than everyone that is just, unfortunately, just following each other. You have a lot of copycats and stuff like that. You know, you want people to stand out, and when it's something like mental health in regards to FPL or fantasy football, this is the kind of stuff I absolutely love. So first of all, thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure being
Thank
on
you,
your
mate.
channel. I'm sure we'll do something maybe in the future. Who knows? You know, we could always have a touch base at some point. In regards to me, I do kind of have to start pushing my channel a bit again because simply it's good to understand Nima, the Arsenal fan, if that makes
I was
sense,
gonna say
rather than
you
Nima,
haven't
the FPL
posted much.
manager.
You haven't posted much. We can talk a bit longer. You haven't posted much on there recently, have you?
Not at all. I did this one, the Patreon, and before that, I think I did a random vlog where I walked around. But prior to that, I'm gonna put some proper content on my channel for a couple of years. But I think I want to start that again because I think it would be quite interesting to see how I would be hosting it. Because I'm not talking about FPL with these guys at all. I don't give a shit about their FPL. I'm literally gonna say, Steve-O, you're a Burnley fan. Why are you a Burnley fan? That's what I'm
Yeah,
literally gonna talk
I
about.
checked out some of you. Like when you had J&O on and stuff, it was like his favourite Arsenal 11 or something, wasn't it? It had nothing to do with FPL.
No, yeah, there was a part where I said your favorite 11, and then there was another one of why you became a fan. So one that I had on Dan Blackwolf, big Wolves fan. Bless him, I mean he's doing fantastically in regards to his following, engagement, everything, absolutely fantastic. But I remember him saying like, "Ray, I'm an actual fan of your channel. I'd like to come on as a guest."
Get me on
And
that.
then I brought him on.
Get me on that to talk about Newcastle. I'd love to give my
Oh,
Newcastle.
okay. All right,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
I need a new team. So
That
yeah,
would be good. That would be good.
okay.
That would be good. That would be good.
I'm gonna hand, yeah, and then it's basically why you became a fan, your first memories, your initial hero, go through your all-time 11, and literally when you do that kind of stuff, you're literally burning 45 minutes, and a bit like here, we've spoken for almost an hour and a half, and it's just fucking flown, man. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too, mate. Yeah, I'd absolutely love to talk about bloody Newcastle. All
I
right,
bet.
great. Thanks so much, Ray.
Thank you.
Please like and subscribe to help get the channel up to 200, maybe even 300 subscribers by the end of the year. Fingers crossed. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.